All right, everybody. I am super pumped about this interview with Dave Schroeder, someone that I've known. Dave, how many years has it been? I mean, has it been 10 years or
Gosh,
like
I think we're
seven-ish?
I think we're creeping up on 10. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years. So when I first met David, he was a senior executive at Rocket. And I remember when you reached out to me, I was just so pumped that someone at your level at Rocket, running the TPO channel was watching our content. Like it just made me feel good that, oh, this guy is paying attention to what's going on here over at Mortgage Coach. So, uh,
Well, likewise, I remember why I'd reached out, and there was some kind of a controversial issue in the industry, and I just thought you had a very balanced approach to how you were looking at it, which, I think I had reached out to you and just said I appreciate that, and that's been borne out through our friendship over the years as well. I think you're connected on a lot of different levels with people because you're seeing in different ways and open to new ideas.
yeah, well, I try to be. So guys, David is the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer for New Res, one of the top five servicers in America, one of the top five lenders. They're in every channel. They have over 100 loan officers that are local, referral-based, purchase-oriented loan officers. They have over 100 loan officers that are focusing on JVs and approaching 300 direct to consumer. So the high 200s direct to consumer. So all three channels, and Dave is like figuring out how do we optimize that. So Dave, what I'd love to do, just because one, you worked at Rocket, you know Rocket well, and now you're at a really big player. I'd love to, and most of the people that follow me, well, we have direct to consumer. We've got a lot of hybrid models where they have both direct to consumer and retail. But I'd love to have this call focused on the IMB market, focused on leaders, at the C-suite that run these companies. And I
Yep.
would love to know how big a deal is this Rocket move in your opinion? Like how much should a CEO, a head of production, be making notice of this and be taking inventory of their practices?
Right, right. And I do want to add as well, because my team members on the wholesale side, we've also got that origination channel. We've got about 85 account executives there, and I think to your point, David, I bring that up just because it obviously impacts brokers and their teams on the origination side. And I think it's a very big deal, both in what it means today, but also just where it implies, where the puck is going. So. I say that because, like you mentioned, I was at Rocket. I think, certainly they continue to evolve in the years that I've left, and I wouldn't pretend to know all the things that are going on there. But I think from a DNA perspective, this fits very well with who they want to be and who they have always kind of looked to be, which is to create kind of this elegant, integrated, very streamlined, low friction experience. And that's in whatever they're doing. And so, bringing together the servicing element with the Mr. Cooper acquisition, as well as the Redfin, so that now they're in the real estate brokerage side of it. I think that all fits. It's the Apple kind of model of having it all together, and it all fits. If that's the kind of experience that you're looking for, gosh, it's hard to imagine kind of anything being more click and play, and that doesn't even speak to some of the other pieces they've got with Amrock on the title and appraisal side. So all those pieces are there. I think like anything in life, it's know who you are, and I think that fits who they are. So I think it's smart in that regard, and I'm sure they'll do a great job with it. That said, sitting outside of it, I think myself and other folks who might be listening to this are thinking about, well, what does it mean for me, and what do we do? And the first place I'd start, I think when most people think about Rocket, they think about brand. And there's brand in the sense of Super Bowl commercials, and then there's brand in the way of how do we show up every day and what do we do? And I think, at least for the retail and JV, and I think our account executives and brokers that I work with every day, their brand is themselves as a loan consultant. That's what the realtor is buying in the market, and the customers are buying. And so, is this the kind of person that's going to answer the phone at 9 o'clock on a Friday to do my pre-approval? Is this the kind of person that when all heck is breaking loose on a loan is going to run to it and figure out a way to get this loan done? even if it doesn't fit kind of the box, if you will. And so those are the kind of things that I see, call it heroes every day here at NewRez and like I said, across um, our broker network and at other competitors. And that's what differentiates people, I think, when you talk about brand. And I think that's where we've got to lean into it. I mean, there's going to be an audience for that streamlined experience where everything feels kind of no friction, one thing to the next. But at least in my experience, 80% of the loans might be like that, but the 20% is where you make your name when things go wrong, and can you respond to that? And that's when people make a difference. So, I don't know if you have a comment on that, Dave, but that's kind of the first element that I think about with this acquisition and the things that they're doing.
Well, I think I know how you're going to answer it because you and I have become friends and we talk shop a lot, but there, like if there was a compass, and you looked at the value prop, and let's focus on the value prop of someone that's local. Like I am local and I want to rocket proof my practice,
Yep.
or I'm the CEO of a lender that has a lot of local loan officers. You've got price as a value prop. You've got speed and the time it takes to close, and then convenience. And it's going to be tough on those three things now that Rocket has this, whether you call it tip to tail
Yep.
experience or first click to final payment, and now this consumer has paid off their house. It's going to be tough to compete on those things from a unique standpoint. Like you need to be competitive. But what are your thoughts on like the North Star for someone that's local? It's advice and coaching. Like
Yeah.
if you're local, yeah, you need to compete on price, speed, and convenience, but you really need to go beyond the transaction and provide coaching and advice, and that is the framework to win locally. What are your
That's
thoughts
right.
on that?
I mean, I totally agree that it's competency, like you say, in being able to um, coach, being able to consult with folks. And I think even beyond that, it's genuine connection. I think there's a lot of focus right now, and rightly so. We live in the age of big data, and people are going to look at that, and it's always trying to predict when somebody's coming in the market and when's the exact right time to talk to people. But look, I mean, you can send 100 emails to somebody and ask them, you want a mortgage, you want a mortgage, you want a mortgage. That's not the same as having a genuine connection with people and understanding who their families are and when they're going to be ready to do something and why they would be willing to do something different, whether it's a refinance or when they're going to move. And that's where, um, local brokers, local retail branches, or JVs, and all these folks. That's where I see the connection in people, and you see the same things that there's real connections here with realtor partners where you're showing up on at the ball field on the weekends, you're showing up on at weddings and those kind of things, as well as just the competency that shows through of being able to help when there's not money on the line, when it's just because you need genuine consulting, you want to know when you should be ready, and nothing may happen for 6 months, a year, 2 years, but you're still there talking to folks and um, making an impact for those people.
Yeah, no, I love that word, genuine connection. And there's so much to unpack. And if you're watching this and you are a mortgage professional, I would really urge you on a scale of 1 to 5, just go around like, hey, where am I at in price? You know where you're at. Are you a 3, you're 4, you're 5? And regardless of how you score on convenience, price, and speed, where you need to become a level 5 coach. Like if you are going to compete and win. And what do you think about this thesis that, well, I think Rocket is a real threat, and heck, every servicer I think is going to, you guys are doing a really good job of retaining rate and term refis. Like
Yep.
whatever the number of rate and term refis the local originator was getting in the past, it's going to be less going forward because you, Rocket, and all of the top servicers have got really good at retaining those refis. So we need to be really good at retaining the purchases. And what I've been telling the industry, and tell me what you think about this, like your biggest threat is not Rocket. Your biggest threat is the local competition that you have that is upgrading their customer experience, you know, and they are upgrading quickly and they are a real threat. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's totally right. And I think, look, I mean, we have a strategy of customer for life as well. I mean, we're doing everything like we can to build relationships and to retain our customers. At the same time, when I'm out talking to people about some of the things we do to help them retain their relationships at the broker level, for example, the vast majority of brokers that I talk to are like, I appreciate that, but I don't need it because I have my own plan for how I keep in front of my customers and those kind of things. And so I think that's the lesson that everybody should take, is that if you don't have a plan for how to keep your customers yourself, then you're already behind. If you're waiting for somebody else to give you triggers and whatnot, then you're already kind of on your back foot, because typically triggers and things like that things are already in motion, and you're not in an offensive position at that place. So I think, having a plan for how you're going to, as we say, genuinely connect with people, not just sending the birthday email. I think those are nice things to do, but a lot of people are doing that. I think I get a birthday email from the cable company, but I'm not loyal to them. So it's important to actually talk to people and check in once in a while and see how their life is changing. And I think, to your point, Dave, that you've made a while back, our business is changing into how we become genuine consultants in wealth creation. It's not just about the rate, it's not just about the term, those kind of things. I mean, look, those are the things that are getting outsourced to AI and technology and people who've just been in the business for 6 months, kind of thing. I mean, the thing that separates you is the ability to look at optionality and think about how that fits in a life plan for somebody. So I think that's super important. And look, I would just say this as well. There's amazing technology that's being built by competitors like Rocket and others. At the same time, look, I mean, there are certain things that are structural in the market, whether it's how long it takes to get an appraisal, or just how long it takes for regulation, that you have the waiting periods. So yes, speed is important, but most important is setting expectations with customers. If they understand what to expect, yes, speed's important, but if people know that, hey, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow on something, that's one of the things, when you look at Stratmore survey data, that's one of the most important things in the world. People just want to understand, what do I need to do? And when are you going to reach out to me and tell me? Don't make me call you back. So I think, again, just making an experience for people that they have confidence in is, goes beyond what any kind of technology can do at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. I recently did a podcast with Bruce Gerke, who is head of lending intelligence for JD Power, and he had a very profound quote that I wrote down. I actually added it to our presentation because it's clear that consumers, going forward, they want you to anticipate their needs, and they want you to interact beyond the transaction. Like,
That's
they're
right.
expecting you to anticipate their needs. They're expecting you. And he also made a whole case that you guys, you're not competing with other lenders. You're competing with Amazon and the expectation that they have. You're competing with how Netflix is telling you, hey, what you're most likely to want to do.
Yeah.
You're competing with Perplexity and AI, where I ask a question and then it gives me prompts like, hey, you're competing with other consumer experiences, and the lending industry needs to take note of that. Like,
Yeah.
you need to deliver that type of experience going forward.
That's right. And I was speaking with somebody the other day about this topic of just why why are brokers, for example, growing the way that they are. And one of the things is that technology in so many ways has been democratized, so that there's things we can do today as an individual loan consultant, whether you're at a broker or retail shop or whatever. There's so many tools out there that would make you better than a Fortune 100 company 10 years ago, as far as the reach and the ability to market to people and whatnot. And so, these are the kind of advantages that you've got. And it's just important that we're learning those kind of things, and that we are deploying them in a way that then creates the relationship as an enduring uh, advantage, and allows us to spend more time with people. Because we've seen this, and I think Jeremy Potter had spoken about this a couple of days ago, that the folks at the I think there's going to be a thinning of the herd. And I agree with Jeremy in that the best loan consultants, the hardest workers, those are the folks that are going to excel. They're going to have to, we're going to see the margins thin. The best people are going to have to do more. So it's just a matter of, how can we continue to do more, but still make it feel like they're the only customer in the room, because that's how everybody wants to feel. Everybody wants to feel like they're the only customer and they're not just the next customer in a line. You kind of hear that expression for years. I don't want to feel like I'm just a number. And a lot of entities, whether it's in mortgage or consumer products or whatnot, that's the way they make you feel, and it's never a good thing. And so, we have to find a way to, yes, use data and be more efficient, but at the same time, listen and create solutions that actually feel like I'm a person and I'm important. And I think, there was a survey I saw a couple of weeks ago that was encouraging for us, that, you mentioned Amazon and being the Amazon generation. And I've kind of been using that talking point for several years, that folks have grown up with Amazon now, a lot of the first time home buyers, and that their expectations of the lending experience are very different than what, you or I would be, Dave. Like if somebody told me, hey, I need you to get your W-2, and candidly, if someone told me to fax it to them, I'd be like, okay, that seems weird, but sure, I'll do that. Whereas somebody in this generation, the generation coming up, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? Like, why can't I just push a button? So there is an expectation like that. At the same time, this survey that I was reading was saying that it's actually started to turn the other way, and that millennials are starting to ask more. Their expectations are for more human contact. And so, I think that's a good thing. And again, that plays into our hand as IMBs and as local loan consultants, that, there is a desire to, even if I'm not going to meet you face to face, to know that I could if I wanted to, and that you know me and you know my community.
Yeah. So he mentioned Jeremy Potter, guys. Jeremy he was a former executive at Rocket, someone that David and I both consider a friend. Be sure to follow him on LinkedIn. He's also one of the new on the board for First Home IQ. So he has joined
Yeah.
our board of directors. So check out Jeremy. Make sure you follow Dave on LinkedIn as well. You said something about Amazon that made me think, and I'm not going to give the whole backstory of where I first heard WACD. By the way, do you know what that acronym means?
I don't.
So, guys, write this down. If you are a local retailer, you have been obsessing over WACD. And if you haven't, either they're out of business or their stock is down. But the retailers that have played the WACD game, it's what Amazon cannot do. So empathy, connection, and then there's two parts to WACD. You got to do what Amazon cannot do, and then you also need to do what Amazon can do. So like retailers like Nordstrom's, they're local. They have quality people. Uh, you can look at things, you can touch things. Same time, if you go up to, you can't find what you want, and you go to anyone in the store, oh, you could drive 8.7 miles that way. I could click a button and have that, is your address X? I can have that sent to you. And if you don't like it, you can bring it back here. Like they can do what Amazon can't do. They can do what Amazon can do. So it's this duality that came to
That's
mind
right.
as I heard you say that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And what Amazon brings convenience, it brings it, to my doorstep, or like say now I can go to Whole Foods and return it or whatever. I would say that what they're probably not very good at doing from my perspective is solving problems. Like for me as a person, if I'm trying to interact with somebody, you can't get a hold of anybody to do anything. And again, I think that's kind of the unique thing that an individual loan consultant can still really be valuable for, both to the consumer, but I think particularly for realtor partners, brokerages, because that's where I think it's a confidence game, or I know it's a confidence game, that people want to know that there's somebody like, this is my person. And so, I can remember years ago, and we were really proud of the fact that we had a lot of different teams, and my ops partner at the time, we started off with this idea of, oh my gosh, we're going to market this, that we got a team for this and a team for that, and people are going to love it, that there's all this speciality of getting things done. And what we found is that no, people don't want to know that you got a team for everything. They want to know that you're going to be the one to pick up the phone. Like I got my guy, I got my gal, and they're gonna take care of me. And you can have all the teams you want in the back, but it's this one person. And I think that's really important. And that, again, that's a superpower of a great loan consultant.
So let's break that down and get tactical here, because you and I have had conversations around, like, let's just call it retail 2.0.
Yep.
And I'm not going to ask you to share any proprietary things that are part of your strategy. But of course, however you want to answer this. But I do believe that, to really scale and win, a lot of IMBs need to change how they manage, how they hire, how they provide technology, how they get adoption of technology.
Yep.
So for any IMB leader listening to this, what do you think, what's the playbook to, like we're in a new era. Like I think this rocket is a big deal. Although I think we are in a new era that started when we saw ChatGPT for the first time. And we're like, oh my God, look what AI could do. So I think, like, I was talking to Ron Stowers. I'm giving you credit for this, Ron. And he's like, we're in a 1,000-day race. And at the end of that 1,000-day race, things are going to look different. And him and I were debating, did that happen when chat showed itself for the first time, or did that happen when Rocket did this most recent round? But regardless of when it started, there's a 1,000-day race. And in 2027, things are going to look really different. And if you're an IMB, what's the playbook? Like, what are some things that you think IMBs should be executing well on right
Yeah.
now?
First of all, I just want to acknowledge the AI thing. I think that's totally spot on. I wasn't able to see the podcast that you just did, but I will tell you that I am in a 1,000-day race. If I feel like every day now somebody gives me some kind of idea with AI where it's like, oh my God, I never thought of that. So that, it is one of those things where I'm continually kind of amazed at both the capability of it, but the creativity of people in finding ways to apply it and make themselves more efficient. And so, I would start there on the IMB front of just having a high level CRM, and as you and I have discussed in the past, the best CRM is the one that you'll use. But I think that's really important, that there is a singular kind of operating system. And I say that not because we should control what people do or how they interact with their customers, but there are intuitively best ways to do things. And so those kind of things should be structured in a way that people can take advantage of it. And the other thing is, we've talked a little bit about the capabilities of technology and the experience, but the other thing is the economics that brings. That's going to continue to push margins down. And you can't, just by design, the corner bookstore is not going to operate at the same margins as Amazon, stretching that analogy through. And so you've got to find ways to get the efficiencies in process. And I think, having a CRM, a structured way to do that, and a way to create workflow, a way to engage AI in a consistent manner, that's super important to the future. The other thing, that we believe, and I talked earlier about some of the things that are happening in the market are validating what we've been doing, is the whole concept of customer for life. So it's very important to us, our servicing book and the experience that our customers have and how we are engaging with them over time. And part of that is that we want to meet customers where they are and be channel agnostic. If somebody wants to work with us, and they want to do it all over the phone, and they're in a market that we don't have a retail branch or a JV presence, great. We've got DTC, and that's going to work terrific. Or we've got our broker network where people can stay with their broker, and we keep them engaged there. If they're in one of our markets for retail and they're early stage purchase, we're currently working with sending those kind of opportunities to our local retail JV branches so that they can really engage with the customer, with the realtor in their marketplace where they're going to be best. But the point in all that is that I just think, we've got customers and we want to take care of the customer in the way that they want to be serviced. And that may be different today than it is tomorrow as I evolve with my home ownership journey and understanding, like, my first time buying a home, I'm going to want a different experience and a different level of handholding than I might when I'm getting my streamline 5 years later or whatever. So understanding kind of who the customer is and providing those options to meet them where they are, super important. And then, look, I think that because there is so much lack of a better word, kind of tribalism, and whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing right now through social media and whatnot, I think it really is important that we allow salespeople, that we allow whether it's loan consultants or processors, just team members in general, to bring their whole self to work for that engagement so that people feel comfortable. We don't want to create an experience where everybody's going to be the same, where all of our marketing looks the same, et cetera. We really do. We want to engage people where they are, both in how they speak and the kind of people they want to entrust their financial life with.
As you were talking, and this came up in a conversation I had right before this with a chief strategy officer at a, medium-sized IMB. But, he's like, we're all trying to figure out how to rocket-proof our mortgage company while controlling our cost to close or
Yep.
our cost per closed loan. And so that knowing that I might even make that the headline of this call, because I do think that is, that's going through the mind of a lot of IMBs. But where do you look at like tools like Mortgage Coach? Because I know, and by the way, full disclosure, this is a Mortgage Coach customer, but like why is it important to have Mortgage Coach as part of your tech stack? And why do you think IMBs should really look at how am I automate? Like we got to have a CRM, we got to be smart with data. So we need to be monitoring data and taking action on data. But what about the advice piece and the coaching
Yeah.
piece?
Well, for for myself and for our team, as it relates to Mortgage Coach, the first thing is that I think it helps us and at some level forces us to think more deeply about the customer's experience. It's one thing to kind of quote the thing that seems most obvious. Hey, 30-year fixed rate, here's the rate, here's the fees, what do you think? But I think having Mortgage Coach as our North Star, if you will, it forces you to take a pause and think about, well, how else could I think about this? And how else could I present it to a customer? I could think about this, I could think about that, and how would that look? And so I think it helps us to be better advisors because it creates a framework to do that every time. The second thing is that it puts something into the customer's virtual hands, if you will, where they can actually interact with it and see what's happening, see the implications, and ask better questions. And then finally, as a marketer, as a sales professional, it gives us some signals of, hey, the customer is engaging with this, they're interested in what we're doing. And so, as we're thinking about the most efficient use of our time, we don't have to call them the next day and ask them, hey, did you take a look at that yet? We know if they looked at it, and when they looked at it, we can call them and say, hey, what'd you think? So I think it helps everyone involved to have a better conversation, to ask better questions, and ultimately to get to better solutions.
Yeah, and the way I would look at this as a formula for all you sales leaders out there is it really forces curiosity. Like it is
Yep.
the demonstration of curiosity. It is the deliverability of transparency. Like if you're just, hey, here's your cash to close, and here's your rate, and here's your payment. By the way, that is a commoditized mortgage experience. But when you're human and you had that conversation, whether it was in person, over Zoom, and remember, guys, if you're going to do what Amazon can't do, um, if you can't be in person, be on Zoom. Connect with people, put a video on it. Do the things that uniquely embody you as a human being. And what does that equal? It equals a unique competitive advantage. When you do it
Right.
well. So I do. What is your thought? Like, I think one of the most important things that IMBs need to do is they need to get good at getting LO adoption, and not just technology, but of best practices. Like when you invited me out to Rocket, and
Yep.
I've been at Rocket, and when I went there for the first time, I thought like, oh, it's because of their marketing budget and their brand that Rocket's Rocket. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's because of their tech spend and this unique proprietary tech. But I finished, multiple visits there and speaking there multiple times with, why? It's because of the training resources they put in to having their mortgage professionals deliver best practices at scale,
That's right.
and so
I agree.
I
Culture
think
and
IMBs
coaching.
could do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Culture and coaching. It's huge. And,
Culture and
bringing
coaching.
it, bringing it full circle to the mortgage coach side of it. I think that's another thing, that's maybe unseen, and it's in the brand of the product is coaching. That's one of the things we're seeing here, in the location I sit in, which is a direct to consumer purchase site. It's been invaluable for us to have people go through the mortgage coach and then have a leader sit down and actually talk to people like, why'd you think about it that way? Did you think about it this way? How do you look? It's really valuable in that way because it, to that point of having it at scale, now leaders can look at what people are doing and how they're interacting with it as salespeople, and they're getting kind of better in real time of the presentations they're creating and the solutions that they're crafting.
Yeah. So guys, there's the North Star. It's culture and coaching. And if you are an IMB, and you have a distributed sales force, by the way, there is a framework to do it. Like we have what we call Coach to Coaches program, where we literally focus on the branch managers and up, and we're getting their buy-in. Authorship is ownership. We're getting their buy-in on the technology, and then we're running separate experiences to get them to adopt. So David, this has been awesome. This is the first time I've had you as a guest.
Yeah.
I hope it's not the last. Any closing thoughts for the
You
industry?
know,
Anything?
the only other thing I was going to say, is that, as all this has been happening over the last couple of weeks, it did cause me to kind of reflect on the strategy behind it. And I mentioned earlier, that I think that Rocket is very much kind of that Apple, strategy. And so by inference, what does that make for those of us who are on the Microsoft side of it? And I think what it says is that we've got to double down on great partnerships. We've got to be able to plug and play with our, in Microsoft world, it's licensees. For us, it's just building better and better partnerships so that it is an integrated, it feels like that integrated solution to customers, but we have the benefit, if you will, of getting the best of the best in any one of those areas, whether it's, title insurance or technology or the realtor partners that we choose to work with at a local level. All those things, we should, in my belief, intuitively have the best of the best at each of those. The challenge then is just to make sure that it feels like it's one piece and it's all one team. And that's got to be the goal every time. I read hundreds and hundreds of surveys, every week. My team will attest that I drive them nuts giving them comments about surveys, but I just learned so much from those surveys about what we're doing right and where we got to get better. And the common theme in all of it is that to the customer, it felt like it was all one team. It felt like everybody was sitting in the same room, even though it may be team members that are spread out among multiple sites. And so, again, when you talk about North Stars, that's another one for me. It should feel that way to a customer.
Yeah, no, I love it. So here's a closing thought, guys. So if you are an IMB, we all know that loan officers want to close more loans with less effort. So look at your tech stack, look at your coaching and the culture you're creating. And one, data matters. Like you need to have it in a central place. It
Right.
needs to be monitored for signals. Advice, automated advice, predictive advice, so that you're enabling your loan officers to be advisors. You need to have integrations with the loan manufacturing tech stack. So you need to be able to go from CRM, from Mortgage Coach to, automate with LOS, pricing engine. You need to give your loan officers a great workflow. I highly encourage you to really look at how you're training. We've had some real breakthroughs with the Coach to Coaches program. I highly encourage you, like measuring and scorecarding matters. Like, are you scorecarding the right things that drive profitability? Like, hey, we ran a credit report, we gave a mortgage coach, we funded a loan. How does that compare if we just ran a credit report and gave a fee worksheet? So, hey, Dave, thank you very
And
much, brother. Oh,
Yeah,
you
I
were
was
gonna
just
say
going to
something?
say that's right. I mean, I just put another, kind of point, Dave, on the data part and the CRM is that, as I tell our team all the time, the CRM is not there to be your babysitter. It's there to help you make better decisions. The data should point to things you never would have seen otherwise, and again, just make you more efficient. To tell you, different things, the different patterns of customer behavior and whatnot. And again, it's just gonna make you better. So we all do need to embrace the data for what it is, not to control our lives, but just to make us better.
Yeah. So guys, make sure you follow this man on LinkedIn. Are there any other channels you want to make sure people follow you on or ways to learn more from you?
I think LinkedIn's the way to go.
Okay, LinkedIn, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm active on LinkedIn. Make sure you follow me. Very active with YouTube. Make sure your loan officers know about it. I've worked hard for over a decade to interview the best of the best, and it's a place that loan officers should follow. Also, savageinsights.com. That is where I post whoever I'm interviewing next. I can guarantee I am going to have this interview towards the top. Also, I have a mobile club called Savage Insiders, where I'm sure we will be, pushing this out to that mobile club. So whether you're a leader, whether you're a loan officer, and you want to be a modern data-driven mortgage advisor that wins in this next future of the industry, this 1,000-day race that we're on, make sure you follow that. And thank you, David. I really appreciate this,
Yeah.
brother.
Thank you, sir. Always a
All
pleasure.
right.
See you,
Oh,
bud.
and lastly, guys, if you do not have Mortgage Coach built into your tech stack, go to
Do it.
trustengine.com, and I would love to walk you through Mortgage Coach Next Gen. Take care, everybody.
All right. See you.
Don't hang up.